back to another edition of Talking SANFL. My name is Andrew Hayes. This is Daniel Menzel. Let's talk about the round that was, and that is round 14. We're really getting to the pointy end of the season. We might jump straight into it with our Iperform insights, scores and ladders. North taking on Norwood. This was the first game that we're going to talk about, and this was close, as we probably expected. 48-40 in favour of the Roosters.
Yeah, it was. It was a close game. A really important win for the Roosters because it keeps them in that fifth position on the ladder, which we'll get to shortly. But for Norwood, again, just struggling to score at the moment. They're last in offence this season, and I feel like that loss to the Eagles a couple of weeks ago just has really dented their season, and now finals is too far.
We might speak about this a little bit more in depth later on, but the Bays taking on West, you would assume that's probably a comfortable win for the Bays, but they got the job done, but it wasn't easy.
No, and it wasn't pretty either. It was horrific conditions there, over 270 tackles in that game. Glenelg able to get an important win, but West are playing some really good footy at the moment.
The Dogs are keeping their finals hopes alive. They're just sort of flirting with the top five. A nice little win over South.
Really nice win. They did what they've been doing at home all season, the Dogs. They've been ultra impressive there. They've only dropped the one game at home this season, and a good win, but South Adelaide, it's been a very disappointing year for them.
Maybe the biggest win of the round, and maybe a little bit surprising as well, was Port Adelaide taking on Sturt. Port Adelaide, pretty solidly comfortable winners there.
Yeah, they were. I tipped this one last week, which I needed to get to pull back, and we'll get into tips later on. You've got a couple on me at the moment, but Port playing some really good footy, 4 wins on the trot now. So their form stacks up as good as anyone in the competition, and Sturt just a little hiccup there.
And to round out round 14, the Eagles, a really, really bad loss to the Crows.
Yeah, it was, because you look at that and go, hey, the Crows are probably the best team in the comp at the moment, the way they're playing. But on the weekend, their lineup didn't have the likes of Schoenberg, Matt Crouch, Haitley, Cook, and Nankervis as well. So it was a much more weakened Adelaide side, but they still were far too dominant for the Eagles.
Let's talk about the ladder. For 14 rounds, the top 5 is Glenelg, Sturt, Adelaide, Port and North. Central's flirting with the top 5 as well. They're very much in touch. But it would seem right now it's a 3-horse race.
Yeah, it would. However, which way are you going with that? Because Port's won 4 in a row, so I don't think you can rule them out. At the moment, I think Port and Adelaide's form stacks up as well as any, but again, we know that it's going to be dependent on what happens in the AFL lineup. I think that it's an interesting battle around 5th position. North Adelaide and Central's at the moment equal on points, a couple of big games if the Dogs are going to make finals this year. But North Adelaide's starting to get their players back, look like they should be good enough to play finals.
It's a really good point you make in terms of the AFL sides, Port Adelaide and Adelaide as well. Wouldn't call it a crisis, but smashed in the last few days with injury is the Crows. So obviously that affects the SANFL side. And Port Adelaide, Willie Rioli will come back. There'll be a few more additions towards the end of the year. So always depends what's happening with the AFL side. But right now, Adelaide's going to have a few players plucked from the state side.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they can handle those changes in their lineup. But it's going to be a great showdown this weekend between the Crows and the Power.